All right, friends, welcome to week 3, lecture 2. It is November 10th, 2021. And today we are going to continue with our MySQL journey. So we do really have sort of 3 days with MySQL here. The reason for that is because we have our extra week. Again, there will be an additional lecture that I give or Bill gives, either one, to talk about modularization that we hope that you can dive into. And that is on our class list right here. It will be posted in our in the actual videos, but it'll be posted right here. This break week video will be a lecture on modularization. So just be prepared. That is in 2 weeks. So next week we're chilling, normal time, normal everything. The following week, we do have the entire week off. You will not have any core assignments, but this is a great time for you to get caught up on anything that you need. So make sure you're using this time. Take some time, especially, you guys have been going. This is a harder course, right? So take some time for your mental health. Absolutely go be with family, your friends, or whatever you do on Thanksgiving. But also, keep in step because we're hitting the ground running starting week 5. Week 5 is transparently where we see the biggest drop off for students. So we want to make sure that you guys have a video. You guys are working through that. Obviously, there's not going to be TAs or one-on-one sort of thing that's available because the whole company's off. But hopefully you guys are hitting the ground running and then on this Tuesday, pick right up. And so, yeah, that modularization video will be right here in this break week video piece. Okay. So one thing I did want to point out for office hour, we talked about 2 riveting concepts, if you ask me. First one is Bootstrap. It is just a CSS library that you can use. You don't have to use it by any stretch of the imagination. It is a very quick and easy tool to make any sort of website or anything that you're doing look really nice, really, really simply. It's basically just a list of classes that you can utilize to make your code look great, whether it is making it look good for nice buttons or forms or modals or whatever you want to do. Bootstrap has a lot of stuff. So that was the first half of that. The second half, we just walked through, again, some different code stuff, right? Some different algorithms, how I would walk through this stuff, what our pseudocode is, how I would think through this stuff, some edge cases. And we did a more difficult one where we tried to reverse a list and saw why you needed to do certain things and how we got here. So please, that will be located in your office hour. Sorry, yesterday's office hour wasn't up yet. I did just get that video. We will make sure that that is up tonight as well. But this will be in the office hour position as normal. Just as a reminder, as always, I'm going to tell you, you got discussion questions due by Sunday. Make sure you do them, please. Take the 5 minutes it takes to do those, do that. And you do have 4 assignments this week. It is your core assignments are Dojos and Ninjas, the ERD version. We talked all about ERDs yesterday. We're going to talk all about them today. Same thing with your books. And then you have your Dojos and Ninjas queries, and then your MySQL countries assignments. And so these are more of the query stuff that we talked through yesterday. We're going to walk through that again. You guys at the beginning are going to tell me what I should code and how I should code it. And then we're going to talk about joins, right? So yesterday we created users and pets. We created tables for those. We talked about foreign keys and on delete cascading and what auto increment does. And so today I'm going to have you guys sort of build and help me populate my database, and we'll do some joins and see what that has there. Any questions so far before we jump in? Any class questions? Cool. And like I said, make sure that you are familiarizing yourself with this stuff, especially with this MySQL queries. This is a different language. So you guys can't put this down on your resume that you are learning MySQL or that you eventually will know MySQL and know these queries. There are jobs that handle databases and handle queries. This is a normal piece of the job, especially when you get to the more data business analyst sort of stuff. So it's a great, great skill to have. It doesn't take that much to learn and understand, but there are just a couple of things that we're gonna go ahead and handle. Yesterday, we selected, we inserted, we updated, and we deleted. And this is what we call our creating, or our CRUD, sorry, where our select is what we're reading, right? We're reading what's from our database. Our insert is our creation in the database. We were able to create an instance of a model, very similar to creating an instance of a class, right? Just within my database, I call it a model. I am able to update my model and I'm able to delete my model as well, or my instance of my model. And so we've done that. And then today we're actually going to talk about joins, and they are a lot more scary than you would think. And basically what it is, and this is sort of a great thing, is it's taking two tables and we're just joining them together, right? We are, as long as they have a relationship, they have a foreign key to join them on, we are taking two tables, we're joining them together so that way we can see all of the information. We'll see why this is important and what this may want to do. But you can sort of think about this as an association between classes, right? In the same way that we wanted to be able to see my user associated to my bank account, maybe my user's full name, same sort of thing with my join. We're just going to join them together so that way I have access to all of my information. And then in 2 weeks, when we do Flask plus MySQL, so I guess technically in 3 weeks, because 2 weeks is Thanksgiving, when we do that, we're really going to start doing joins so I can show all sorts of information onto my on my application, which will be really fun. So let's hop over to MySQL. And if I were to go into my instance, I have my database, my pet DB. And just by looking at this, I've got a couple things, right? Here was some of our inserting, we're creating users, right? So if I were to get rid of this guy, don't want that. And if I were to run this instance, I'm getting all from users, and it looks like I've got 4 users, right? Again, I've got Will, I've got Kate, I've got Elon Musk, and I've got Ron Burgundy. And we talked about how when I create something and I delete an instance, because my ID is auto incrementing, it does not go back and refill. There's a lot of reasons for that. Just know that it doesn't, right? You don't need to refill it. A database would get very confused if it had to refill or do a bunch of stuff. It doesn't do that. So just know that as we are doing this, our ID does auto increment, and it's not broken if you're saying 1, 2, 3, 5. We deleted number 4. So there's there. Now we talked about inserting. We talked about selecting, right? Here I selected all. We showed how we can create. So let's actually jump in and let's create some pets. Now, if I were to look at my pets, there's a couple things it needs, right? It has an ID that's auto incrementing, meaning I don't have to put that in. If you don't put this AI, right, when we are creating it, when we are forward engineering, if you do not click the button of AI, you do have to input the ID every time, which doesn't make sense. It won't do. So you will have to reformulate your database to make sure it is auto incrementing. Why that doesn't come default, I'm not quite sure, but please make sure that you do that. Looks like we also have to have a name, a type, a color, and then it's got to create it, update it, but it also has a user ID. So let's go ahead and create from pets. Let's say insert. Actually, before I say that, can anybody tell me, let's go ahead and create a pet. Can anybody tell me how I would do that? You can come off mic. This is going to be more of a, you guys growing with me. Like this is our extra lecture. And so I want you guys to have, sort of full hands. You can either type it in the chat or you can come off mute. Just kind of, I'm going to be a robot and you guys just tell me what to do. So if I wanted to add in a new pet, what would I do? What's my first step?
Select from.
So if I'm adding, if I wanted to see all of them, I would do select. That's my read. But if I want to add something, what else would I do?
With input?
It's insert. Yeah, super close. Insert into. And this is all on the platform right here, right? So if I'm saying insert, there's a nice little, sort of breakdown right here. But I would say insert into, and then I'd say the table name that I want. In this case is pets, right? And then if I look here, anybody else know what I'm going to say next? I'm going to put the column names I'm inserting, right? Set would be my updating, right? Here, I need to put the column names. Now, if I'm looking here, I've got name. So I've got name. I've got type. I've got color. Oh. And then the other thing to know is that on a mini side, we kind of talked about this mini sort of one-to-many side. On the mini side, in order for a pet to be created, it must have an instance of my user, right? It must have a user ID. So let's say something like this. Let's say, well, actually, let's just not put that and then we'll see what happens and what it gives us. So I'm seeing a little bit that you guys are saying set. You do not need set. That is on my update where I'm going to say set, right? Update table name set. If I'm inserting, I don't have to put set, right? I just say the table name, the columns I want to insert. Then I will say values. And then the values I want to create. So in this case, for name, I'm gonna put Chuck. Type is Doge. I'll put dog. And then color is white. I'm gonna make dog lower. And so now I have done this, but I did not add any sort of user ID. Let's see if it actually allows us to do this. If I run this guy, it gives me an error. See if I can make this a little bit larger, right? Error code, 4 rows returned, but I got this error code here. And it says you have an error in your SQL syntax. And the reason is because if I've got a value like this user ID here, I do need to add that in. Where does that say? Yes. Oh, weird. I've never had to do that. Let's see. So if I were to say something like this, and then let's say Chuck is my dog, my ID is 1, and I do 1, let's see what happens. Oh, there is an error. Insert into table name, column values, column 1, column 2.
In your first set of parentheses, there shouldn't be quotes.
Oh, my bad. Thank you. I was like, what is going on? Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. So now if I do this, we see that I can now create Chuck, right? So if I were to say something like, that's me commenting it out. If I were to say select all from pets and run this, I get Chuck, pet dog, ID is 1, and then the user it's associated is the user with the number 1 ID. Cool. Let's create some more pets. Let's actually check to see if I can do it without the user ID. Let's check that. So if I were to say something like insert, anybody have a pet name that they want?
Unicorn.
Unicorn. I love that. Yeah, we should absolutely do that. Let's do no user ID and see what happens. So what should our unicorn's name be? Sparkles? Sparkles the unicorn. Color is obviously rainbow. And now let's see what happens. And the issue is it says this user ID doesn't have a default field. And because I did this one-to-many relationship and I said models cascade, meaning that if a user gets deleted, right, then I want this to delete. What this does is it's saying a many side of a one-to-many relationship cannot exist without the one, right? My pet cannot exist if the user doesn't exist. And so just to note is anytime I'm creating a many side of a one-to-many relationship, I do have to pass in the user ID or whatever the foreign key is. In this case will be 2. So now if I were to run this, It does work, right? And if I were to do this and uncomment this guy, oi. And run this. Now it's got Chuck, white, color white, but it also has sparkles, the unicorn, the rainbow, and the user ID of 2. So now I have officially connected my user ID of 2, right? My foreign key to my user who has that ID. Any questions on this?
When inserting, do you have to include the column rows each time, or is there going to be like a shortcut for that?
Do you mean this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will actually in our, we're gonna have an entire file for, let's say, pets in our Flask project. And we will have a function that's gonna have, you'll just write the query one time and it'll take in some information and run this query for you. So you won't be typing it every time. Obviously, you're gonna type it one time and it's gonna take in some data. You're just gonna keep reusing the same query. Right now, because I'm personally populating the database, I do have to type it every time.
Okay, got it.
But
Thanks.
normally it's just going to be a function that basically takes this and then it's going to insert these values from whatever I pass in, right? If I pass in a dictionary, it's going to insert those right here.
Okay, got it.
Great question though. Cool. So now let's say that I've got a website that I can look at pets, right? And that's awesome. I want to do that, but I also want to see the pet's owner. In the same way of, remember when we associated our bank account to our user, and maybe I wanted to look at a bank account, but I wanted to see the user associated. And that's where a join comes in. Now, joins from the beginning can be very confusing, transparently. But all it's doing is it's taking this foreign key. In our case, is this user ID, right? And so if I were to do it from this table, it would take this user ID and it would match it up to the table of users, and it would match up the user who's got the ID that is connected to this dog. So let's see what that looks like. Oops, let's do this. Cool. So if I'm looking at the code here, let's just sort of process through what's going on. Here I'm saying select all, meaning I want all rows from pets. So say select all from pets. Then I'm going to say join. And this is where I'm declaring I want to join 2 tables together. Now you can do it on a new line like this. It doesn't matter, right? I typically don't, but you can do that if you want. So when I say join, and then I'm going to join the other table I want. So in this case, it's going to be users, right? Oops, wrong thing. So I'm going to say join, and then I want to join my users table onto my pets table, right? I want to be able to see the user associated with my pet. Then I'm going to say on. Now this on piece is saying, what is the connector? What is the glue that is going to glue my tables together? Well, if I were to look at the platform, it's where if I'm coming from here, I'm saying, if I'm joining the addresses ID or the addresses, I'm taking the address.id. So the ID of the address equals the original first table's dot, and then whatever the primary key or the foreign key is. So what does that mean? So I'm going to say users.id. So the ID of my user, I want to associate that to, if I'm looking at this, not a double equals, sorry. I'm going to say pets dot, and what is my foreign key for pets? Anybody know? What's my foreign key? Go ahead.
User ID.
Yeah, user ID. Way to go. So I'm saying I want to get all of the aspects from my pets and my customers or my users. I want to join my users table onto my pets table. And the glue that is going to happen is I want to take where the user ID matches the pet user ID. So when I run this, now I've got a full table with all of my information, right? I've got Chuck, dog, white, got this user ID matches this ID of Will, Calhoun, 29, created that, updated that. So now I have access to my information of the user associated with my dog. Same sort of thing when we associated my different classes together, right? If I was coming from my bank account side, but I wanted to see the full name of my user, remember we had that attribute. And that attribute was my doorway into my additional one. Well, if we're coming from our database, when I do a join, that is what I am doing to join my tables together to give me that doorway. So now I have access to all of my information. But one thing I want to note is here I've got just Will and Kate, right? The two owners of pets. Well, let's say I had Facebook and I wanted to, and real quick, actually, before I do that, I want to prove that this can be done the other way too, just as simple. I can say select all from users, join pets on pets dot users ID, user ID equals user dot ID users.id. But because I'm coming from my user side first, my table should be switched. Where now it's got first my user information and then all my pet information. So depending on where I'm coming from, I can do the same, right? I can do a join where I'm joining the information. Now it just changes where, my user comes first instead of my pet or vice versa. But let's say if I see this, right, and I'm using this join, I am seeing some users, but that's not all my users, right? Remember, I have Elon Musk and Ron Burgundy in there. And that's where a left join comes in. If I say left join, that is saying I want to grab all of the users, regardless if this condition is true. Because with a join, right, if I just have it as a join, this is going to take all of the users and connect it to all of the pets that have a relationship. So only if that condition is true, that there is a relationship, that there is a connection, the foreign key matches the ID, only if that's true is it going to go in this table. But again, if I wanted all of my users, let's say I wanted every single user, regardless if they had a pet or not, that's where left join comes in. Left join is going to get me everything from the first table, in this case is my users, regardless if they have a pet or not, regardless if that condition is true. So here, if I were to run this, now you can see that I've got Will Calhoun. It's got its pet. Kate Calhoun got its pet. Elon Musk has no pet, but it's still there, right? I still have access to all of my users. And if there's a pet, it's there. But if they don't have a pet, I still get this user. So that's really the biggest difference between our left join and our join, is depending on where I'm coming from. Mainly, particularly if you're coming from your one to many side, because it's not going to make sense to do a left join, from my pet side, right? Because we've already seen that my pets, in order to even be created, must be associated to a user, right? We saw that in order for me to even create it, I have to put an ID. So me doing a left join, well, it's still going to give me the same results. It's not going to change anything. It doesn't really make sense because if I were to do a left join, it's going to give me all the pets regardless if they have a user, but we know that they have to have a user in order to even be created. And so a left join is really going to be used if you're coming from your one to many side, to where maybe I do want all of my users regardless if there's a pet or not. In this case, from my database, it's joining the ones where that condition is true, but it's also giving me the ones that the condition is not true. Any questions there? This is really the precipice of tonight. I really want you guys to understand joins. So we're really going to sit here. So I want to make sure that you guys really understand it. Today is sort of that, again, that extra lecture to where I can sort of walk through some stuff. So any questions on joins? Do you guys understand joins? Does that make sense? Okay. Perfect. So let's see. How do I want to do this? So I could just select a certain amount of things. So let's say I want to say first name, last name. Oops. And let's see if this works here. Okay. Because I just took my first name and my last name here, it's not, even though I'm doing my join, I'm not grabbing anything from my pet's name or my pets, right? Like if I wanted to change that, just so you know, if I wanted to change that, then I would have to take, let's say, name, type, color, right? I have to name every column that I want. So if I just wanted my users and the name, the type, and the color, so I just wanted information, I don't care about my created at or my updated at, I can change my select here. Or if I want everything, I'm just going to say the star. The star gets me all my information. Now, typically, you are just going to get predominantly all the information. So let's see, let's mess with this a little bit. Because there is also, I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much. But there are certain functions we can also do within this, right? To where here's a great sort of list of the certain functions we can do, whether that's our time now, which is one that's really, really popular, day of month. I can do certain things here. I can do the square root. I can do upper, lower. If I wanted everything uppercase, I could do that. If everything lowercase, I could do that. So let's say I wanted everything uppercase. Let's try that. Let's say I just wanted the first name. Let's see if this works. Now you can see everything is uppercase, right? I applied this upper function to the first name and everything was uppercase. Right? I could do other ones too. I could do, I could do like lower, I could replace if I wanted to. These are a little bit more advanced. You don't need to, but just to see that you can do certain things. You don't need to memorize them. But there are certain things that you can do, certain different tools that you can take your data and do different things if you wanted to. But my real focus is that you can fully understand currently what we're doing. So are there any questions here? Because as we're looking at this, there's certain things that we need to do, right? Where you have your ERD, we're going to build this and you have certain queries. So let's say where you would run to get all cities in Mexico with a population greater than 500,000. Well, we've done that where, right? So where, population is greater than 500,000. So we've walked through all of this information. Are there any questions, anything at all for MySQL that you are struggling with and not quite understanding? Is it creation? Is it anything at all?
Yeah, I had an issue actually just with importing.
Yeah.
And I never got, I can see the lightning bolts there, but it's gray. So I could not import.
Import your
I was doing that Twitter file
Mhm.
and all I get is the code. It doesn't recognize it. I don't know how to describe it, but I just have the code.
Are you clicked on the actual table? Here? I'd be happy to look at that after this.
Okay, well, that's where I stalled today.
Okay.
The rest of this is making sense, but just importing it, yeah.
Cool. Well, then let's just do some rapid fire. I want to add in some stuff. Let's add in some pets. Can anybody tell me, just one person, say Shane. Shane, are you able to tell me if I wanted to create a pet, what would I do here?
You're gonna insert
Insert.
and one sec. Insert into pets,
Into pets. Okay, then what?
and then you're gonna put in name or in parentheses though.
Okay, there we go.
Name, what else we have? Type
Okay,
and color.
color. Okay. Then
And
what?
then you're gonna close parentheses
Okay,
and then values.
okay.
And then we can insert our values whenever we wanna.
Yeah,
put
why
them
don't you
on.
insert something?
Call him
Get on
Spot.
the spot. What's the name?
Spot is the name.
Spot. Love that. Okay,
Then he'll be a dog.
Doge. Love that.
Then we'll say he's brown.
Brown. Okay.
And then we'll give him a user ID.
Okay, where's the user ID gonna go?
Oh, we forgot to add user ID before. I'm sorry.
Oh, all good. I was seeing if you'd catch it. Okay. And we've got
And we'll give
one,
him user
three,
ID 3 at the end there.
3. So Elon.
Yep.
Papa Musk. Okay. Then we close it with our semicolon. Perfect. So now if I run this, perfect. It says insert it into dog. Randy, how would I want, if I wanted to see all of my dogs, how would I do that? Way to go, Shane. Good job.
Select off from pets.
Yeah. What if I just wanted the names? What would I do?
Just type select names from pets
Names?
or name from pets.
Name. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if I did that, I'm selecting, I get just the names. If I wanted all of those lowercase, what would I do? Do you know? And all lowercase, I didn't want that first letter to be uppercase. What would I do? Anybody have any ideas?
Is it lower and then in the parentheses put name?
Yeah. Apply the lower function. And then parentheses, I put name. Yep. And that lowercase is everything. Again, if I wanted that all to be uppercase, I could do upper, and that takes everything and puts it uppercase. Perfect. Cool. Way to go. Way to go, Randy. Aaron, if I wanted to get all of my users, but only the ones who have pets, and I wanted the pets information too, what would I do?
Sorry, I was muted. Could you repeat that again?
Yeah, if I wanted to get all of my users, but only the ones with pets, and I wanted the pets information as well, how would I do that?
I'm not sure. I'm still struggling with this a little bit.
Okay, what you're struggling with, and I can walk through it.
I'm still, I guess, confused on how the two are interacting with each other, like how the names of the users and the pets like are together. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely. Yeah, so I would say select, we're gonna do select all. So let's look at this, right? If I want to do a join, I'm going to select all from users, select all. I say all, just the stars, what I mean by all, from users. I'm going to join my pets. So this is where I'm saying I want to join those two tables together, right? There are two tables in my database. I've got a pets table that we're able to say select all from pets, and it gets me just all my pets, right? And all those information. I also have a users table, right? That exists in my database. That's got all my user information, created at, updated at, ID, everything like that. What I'm saying is I want one table that meshes them both together. So that's where I say join. So I'm joining them together, but I need to tell it, well, what is the glue that's going to hold it together? That's where this on comes in. On is saying, what are the columns that need to match? If I look at the platform here, you see how I've got address ID and this ID of addresses table and how it matches them together, right? This ID matches this address ID and they come together to make one table. So when I'm saying on, what I'm saying is, this is what I want to grab and come together. Here I'm going to say users.id. So remembering that my user's ID is my unique identifier, right? That's how I can designate that this is my user. There might be I don't want to use name and I don't want to use last name because there might be another Will Calhoun out there in my database. I want to make sure that it's this particular Will Calhoun that owns Chuck, not any other one, right? I want the correct one. ID is going to be that. You can think about a social security number or some other number, right? That is unique to you. The ID is that same value, right? That ID is your unique value. Nobody else in a database should have that ID and they will not have that ID, right? And so what I'm saying is let's take that unique number and let's match it up to on my pet. I've got a column called user ID, right? And that user ID is the unique value of the pet's owner, right? That unique thing, again, social security number of that owner. So I can designate this is the owner of this pet. So what I'm doing is I'm taking both tables, I'm connecting them and saying the user who's got this social security number, attach it to the pet whose user has that same social security's number. In this case, we just do ID, right? So I'm going to say pets dot user ID. So I'm matching them together. And then I finish this. So I'm saying select all, meaning I want every single column. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a table that's joining together. I'm joining my users to my pets. And the glue that's going to join them together and match them up is going to be this guy right here. So if I run this, now I get all of my users. And then the ID here, and then this user ID is what matches this ID here, right? This is the column in my pets table. And if this matches this guy, then I say, okay, this instance of my pet, so Chuck, its users got an ID of 1. This in my database, this user has an ID of 1. So then therefore they match up together. Same thing here. This instance of Sparkles, the unicorn, its user's ID is 2. So then I go in my users table and say, which user has an ID of 2? Okay, well, let's put them together. So now I can associate Kate Calhoun owns Sparkles the unicorn. And so on and so forth. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, I think I just need practice like writing it out and doing it on some of the practice assignments to make it like really hit home. But
Yeah,
the content, yeah, it's making a little more sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So does it matter if we replace, so if we said join pets on pets.user ID equal user.id, it will be the same?
Let's
Yes.
see. Yep.
It's the same.
Yeah, we're just saying this is my glue.
Okay. And also, I have another question. So, you can find the yellow bottom on the top. Yes, the one with one or I. What's this for?
Let's see. Lightning bolt. Not quite sure. Oh, this is terrible documentation. Oh, so the lightning bolt will only run highlighted. So let's say I had a bunch of code. I said select. Right, if I run this, it's going to run both of these. Right, if I click this guy, but let's say I just do this, it's just going to run the code that's highlighted. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if I do this, this runs the highlighted code versus if I just in totality run this, does this guy, because this was the most recent thing, so that's what we're seeing. Great question. And then just to really point out for this guy right here, let's say I did want all the users, right? Let's take this out. Let's comment this out. I wanted all the users regardless if they have a pet. What else would I join? What else would I add here? Anybody know?
Left join.
Yeah, do my left, right? Left join. Left join is going to get me all of the instances from this table, this first table here, in case users, even if this condition's not true, even if there's not a pet that has the user ID that matches the ID. So in this case, Ron Burgundy, this information is null because Ron Burgundy doesn't have a pet, right? And a left join will get me that value. If I don't do the left join, it only gets me the values that that condition does match. Make sense?
But the other way, if say you own the 3 pets, would it return your name on each of those lines with those pets and 111?
Yep, let's do that. So let's say insert into, I'm going to say pets, and then I'm going to say name, type, color, user ID, right? Then I'm going to say the values. It's going to be Marley. Dog. Black. And then 1. Yep. So then if I do that and I run this, cool. I inserted Marley. So now let's highlight this. Unhighlight this. Now I've got 2, right? I've got Will. So Will's got 2 pets. This pet's got the ID of 4, but they have the same user ID. Great question, Mike. Great question.
Also, I have a question. How
Yeah.
we can join into many-to-many relation?
Joining a many-to-many relationship?
Yes, with join.
Yeah, so you would have an additional join, right? So
Uh-huh.
then you would say on that, and then you'd say join, let's say users as users 2 on, and then you would join whatever, let's say I had like a like, right, to a post. I would say, you know, like pets dot the liked user equals users 2 users to dot ID. Something like that. It's a little bit more complicated than what we'll do for right now. But yeah, you can have multiple joins on here. When we get to many, yeah, we'll see how do you do multiple joins to join everything together. That's not currently an attribute, so if I ran this, it wouldn't work, right? But let's say that I could have pets, and then my pets could then, users could go in and like a pet, and then you could see its owner. And then I wanted a list of all the users who liked that pet. That's how I would do that, right? Like my pet would also have an attribute that's got the ability to say like liked users. And then that would then have their ID, right? Matches whatever the liked user's ID matches the ID of my user. And so that's how you do multiple joins. And then we'll give you this mega table. And then we can iterate through that
Okay.
and
thank
figure out
you.
our information. So yeah, we'll absolutely go through that in this course. It can get pretty gnarly. There's a, if we're looking at this, I'll just show you what that sort of looks like from the beginning or in the inevitable time. There's a great video by Sal. He's a great instructor. And if we were to do this, let me process. Let's look at it. This, you can kind of see it. I'm trying to let it load. Let's see. There we go.
We're creating a brand new one that needs to be added.
Let's see the join, where the join's at. Maybe it's more at the beginning. So then see, you just have multiple left joins. And what it does is it gives you a bunch of different tables. And you join it all together. But again, that's too advanced for what we're doing right now. It's a pretty advanced topic, but we'll get there for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else? That's all I have, friends. It's a pretty simple one today. Anybody else have any questions on queries, on understanding that? Anything else going on? Was this helpful for understanding queries and joins? Did you guys understand? Cool. Cool. Well, again, I'll have my office hour video up. That's going to go over Bootstrap and again, some more algorithms. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. And then other than that, enjoy your day off tomorrow from class. Make sure you get your discussion questions in and make sure you get your 4 assignments in by end of day Sunday. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night.